Hi, this is Krista here. Welcome to today's talk for Bitcoin Bay. We are chatting to Angela Chan, who is a co-founder of EVOS, which provides educational materials and training for teachers to teach students eventually about the crypto space. So I hope you enjoyed this talk. Angela's going to cover off a little bit more about the company, why she started it, how she started it, where she is now on her roadmap, and any tips or advice for wannabe founders in the crypto space. And the hope is that we inspire a lot of you to come into this space and start building. I just kind of copied out the blurb for myself from your LinkedIn, which just says, Angela Chan, experienced kindergarten to grade 12 educator across an array of curricular areas, continually pursuing professional development and personal growth, grew up a musician, might need to talk about that, specialized in biosciences, focused on business and technology education. The question on mind, how do we use our resources, our intelligence, our technology to better society? So I thought that was quite an interesting intro. But I would love to just hand over to you for you to do a brief introduction of kind of who you are and your background. For context to people listening to the podcast, the reason we're chatting to you today is that you are a founder in the crypto space, and Bitcoin Bay is very interested in talking to founders in this space and understanding a bit better like what your business does, why you ended up being a founder, like what journey led you to doing that. So that's kind of the context. But with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Angela, just to give a proper intro of yourself and who you are and what you do.
I think that description, I guess I wrote it quite a while ago and I couldn't remember, but that pretty well sums me up. I have dabbled and continue to dabble in so many different things. I am a curious, inquisitive, lifelong learner. I can't say I have mastered any of them, much to the chagrin of my parents who couldn't see me fulfill the musicianship dreams. But I started off very interested in the sciences. And I think part of that curiosity and just learning about, well, especially biological sciences, evolution, change, growth, continually changing things, disrupting how things are, and having that lead to evolution and progress. And that's kind of the cycle of science. I studied that in university and I thought, okay, that's great, but I really like talking to people. I really like being in charge and instructing and helping other people learn. So I ended up a teacher. And I like little kids because they're so cute. My first years in teaching, I was teaching kindergarten, teaching children how to decode and acquire language and how to read. And I thought, okay, that's great. Let's see what else I can do. I've been teaching for 2 decades now in a little suburb of Vancouver. And I now find myself as a high school business teacher, which has been fascinating because that was not at all my background. I now teach digital technology, so the use of computers, integrating computers into regular instruction, as well as business education and things like marketing, social media, and how do we responsibly use digital technology to build businesses and to communicate with one another. I now also get to add to my portfolio a female founder in the crypto space as an educator. So when I stumbled upon, excuse me, cryptocurrency 5 years ago, and I was introduced to it by my friend and now my co-founder, I had no idea what crypto was. It was as big, nebulous, it sounded so geeky, so sciencey, so computerish, which was not my background at the time. And I honestly thought that crypto was a children's Chuck E. Cheese token. So I don't know if they have Chuck E. Cheese throughout Canada, but over here, it's a little play place for kids. And as you play their games, you acquire little toy tokens, you trade them in for rewards. I thought Bitcoin was that toy token until I was introduced to it. And then I heard, no, it's a digital currency and it's traded between people. And it was created by not a government or not a professional organization. It was a somebody that we don't even know about. Thought this all sounds really, really cool. And again, going back to how I studied sciences, and science and evolution are all about somebody finding change or something, or nature finding change and then leading to progress. And I thought, let's play around with this idea of currency. Let's find a different way to manage our money and to run our economy. So I started investigating cryptocurrency and I started inquiring more about, well, what is this Bitcoin thing? And does it have a place in the future? And the further down the rabbit hole I went, a very, very deep and confusing rabbit hole a lot of times, the more intrigued I was. But what I found was, and especially quite a few years ago, there wasn't the wealth of information and the streamlined wealth of information that we have now for learning about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and particularly as somebody who didn't have a computer science background and didn't have a finance background, it was just hours and hours of learning. Fast forward to 2022, we realize Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, this technology, they're here to stay for quite a while, and it's coming upon us fast and furious. But as an educator, how do I make sure that the next generation is prepared for this so that they don't have to do all that digging and go through all that confusion that I went through when I was trying to learn about Bitcoin? And so my partner and I, we founded EVOS Blockchain Education and Consulting. And the purpose of that is just to make cryptocurrency education accessible to students and accessible to teachers so that they have the confidence and feel like they have the knowledge and the resources to then speak about this new technology with the next generation.
So a couple of questions on that there. So is your co-founder technical in background, or is he more like on the teaching / business side?
The teaching / business side, and I'd say with both of us, what we share is this passion for learning new things and an openness to learning. And so he actually, it's funny, he learned about cryptocurrency through a student who approached him and said, you need to hear about this. You need to hear about Bitcoin. And at first, my friend was reluctant. He's like,
and how old was the student that approached him? Like what age?
I might be wrong. I want to say 16 or 17. And the student was gifted. He had already had opportunities to, I think he was doing an internship down in the Silicon Valley, or somehow he was connected with Silicon Valley. So this student, he was further ahead in computing science and approached my partner, who was a business education teacher, and said, you need to hear about this.
How long ago was that then? When did Kyle actually start looking into this?
That was 2016.
Oh, so quite early then in crypto terms.
Quite early, yeah.
And when did Kyle approach you and say, hey, what do you think about this, and look into, like, when did your journey start?
I would say about 2017, a few months after. When he spoke, he was very excited once his student told him about it. And he's like, you have to hear this. You have to hear about this. And I sat down as a friend, I sat down and gave him his time and attention. But as he spoke, I was quite intrigued by the idea. I went away, did my own research, and then I came back to Kyle and I said, you need to tell me everything you know about this. And since then, we've just both been digging deeper and learning more. And now we want to share our knowledge with other people so that they can approach it and embrace it if they wish in a faster, easier, more streamlined means.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important. It's really interesting that you're doing this. One question I had as well is, you've obviously taught a wide range of ages. What age are you starting this training at? Like, who's your target market, or what age does your target market start, I guess? Are you talking very young kids, teenagers, or what's your focus right now?
Right now, Kyle and I both teach high school. And so when we begin to bring cryptocurrencies into the curriculum, it is, well, I'd say, what is the age equivalent? In British Columbia, grade 9s to 12, 14, 15, 16, 17. What I'm seeing is the 14-year-olds, the grade 9s, they're already talking about NFTs. They're talking about the metaverse. Some of them have more familiarity and they're very comfortable with using these terms already. And I haven't been in the elementary classrooms or with the younger students at a time when I was interested in talking about cryptocurrency. I don't believe it's a part of their instruction yet, but with the high schoolers, it's not officially a part of the British Columbia curriculum. However, looking at technology in the future, that globally is. And so we will incorporate lessons about how does cryptocurrency work in the economy, how is it used as an investment. We'll talk about blockchain. We'll talk about how to responsibly engage in the metaverse. It's creeping into the curriculum. So far, it's mainly with our high school students.
Interesting, because I'm very much a fan of like teaching them as early as possible, because I just think for me personally, my journey down the rabbit hole, the infamous rabbit hole, it kind of rewired everything I understood about everything, really, like the economy, financial markets, history, philosophy. It's just been a really, really wild ride, and mine only really started, I'd say, about a year ago. But one of the things that I really thought to myself is, gosh, when I look back on like the history of my education across, from a young young age throughout school, post kind of school education. I kind of wish that I had had this resource earlier and this ability to look at the world through this lens. So I almost feel like when you're a child, you don't get taught some things that are very useful anyway. But actually to be able to be taught some of that in the context of what we now understand through studying Bitcoin would be incredibly instructive, I think, at an early age, and would frame much of how you could interact with the world as you kind of go on through your educational life.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Kyle and I are looking to do is to create curriculum so that teachers, not just in high school, but earlier on. And I guess that's also drawing upon my experience having taught like kindergarten students how to read and what those little picture books and storybooks look like, and how do we break down your concepts for younger kids. We'd like to be able to support the elementary school teachers in introducing this to the younger kids for sure. One of the comments that I see from some of my graduating grade 12 students is, you know, school taught me a lot of stuff, but I don't have the confidence to deal with finances once I graduate. I can cook myself a meal, but I don't know, do I get a credit card? What about my credit rating? Should I be investing? The students have a lot of questions about finances, life skills related to that, and having a big global picture about that. So we would love to see it starting at a younger age, and so that the students are at a point where in high school, we can begin to have those other conversations that prepare them for adulthood.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Can you talk to me a little bit then about, so I guess when you guys formed the company, had you ever started a startup before, or is this like your first time?
This is our first time. This is absolutely our first time. My family, they were entrepreneurs. They had their own little business growing up, and that was my only exposure to it. But that was so long ago. That was not the digital era. And so Kyle and I are both full-time teachers. We have found it challenging to run a business and start up a business on the side. But then I guess the fortunate thing is we are business teachers. And so we have a little bit of understanding of how that works and how that process is. But this is our first go at being business owners.
And can you talk about how you structured that then? Have you built it as a not-for-profit? Is it intended to be a profit-making exercise, or how have you constructed it?
Great question. We would love to see, and I guess many people would later on down the road, an opportunity to monetize this. Primarily, it began because we wanted to share education. We really wanted the next generation to be versed in Bitcoin and not be afraid of what this is. We also wanted teachers to not be intimidated by what cryptocurrency is. It began for myself really as, let's just educate everybody. I mean, we all love cryptocurrency, and that's why we're here. We want to see adoption. Adoption is going to happen as education grows. And we find that one of the barriers so far is it seems so technical. We don't know how to jump in. Sometimes we don't have time to jump in. It takes so much time to learn about this. Kyle and I wanted to make it easy for people to learn about Bitcoin. And then if they really wanted to get their feet wet, if they were interested in investing and setting up a cryptocurrency portfolio, we would also then provide a service where we would consult with individuals, and it could be as in-depth as one wanted. It could be as simple as, here's a wallet, here's an exchange you can use. We can guide you through doing that. Or it could be, let's talk about these topics more. Maybe you want to do this yourself. Maybe you want to do it on your own, and we'll just consult over the phone or over the video as you work through it on your own. So for now, we're really focusing on particularly educating teachers and the everyday general public on what Bitcoin is, what cryptocurrency is. Is it something you want to invest in? Later on down the road, we'd love to see this becoming a consultation service so that people who don't have time to do it on their own, we can support them in learning about it and building their portfolio.
I guess you have a lot of experience in designing and implementing curriculums. Could you talk a little bit then about how you've used that experience to structure the crypto education? So, you know, where's your focus? How are the materials structured? What's the journey that it takes you on?
I think one thing we have learned as teachers is you continually go back and revise your material. So even as a 2-decade-long teacher, I will deliver a lesson. I'll go back and say, did it work? What's the feedback I got? What do we need to tweak? And with our curriculum for our Bitcoin seminars and our cryptocurrency seminars, we do continually go back and revise. And since we've started, we've changed it and we've tweaked it a few times. one reason being just because cryptocurrency keeps on changing so quickly, we need to tweak things. I think one of our fortes is taking a big topic and breaking it down into little chunks. Because Kyle and I guess I should really just speak for myself, I don't have that technical computer background. I thought, how do I need to teach it to somebody who also doesn't understand computers, doesn't understand what a byte is and what is a hash rate, and is that relevant? I think we're looking at what's the big picture, what are the terms that we do need to know, how can we deliver that terminology in these processes in ways that are engaging, easy to digest, memorable, and how do we strip away all the excess noise in Bitcoin that we don't really need to learn about? One of our slogans is we separate the knowledge from the noise. And I think anyone who's been in Bitcoin a long time knows there is so much noise out there. And sometimes it feels like it's just there's more noise than knowledge.
Yeah.
We draw upon our experiences with taking a big topic and simplifying it with easy to understand visuals, easy to understand language.
You mentioned Bitcoin a lot. Is your focus primarily on Bitcoin then, or are you trying to cover other cryptocurrencies as well?
Our focus right now is on Bitcoin for a couple of reasons. One being when we talk to the everyday general public person, they are more familiar with the term Bitcoin. And so if I was to mention Ether over their head or not relevant, but most people have an interest in Bitcoin. So we do focus on that. It is our personal favorite coin, and we see it having the most utility and application, so we focus on that as well. And also I think when we introduce Bitcoin, that more clearly ties it into the economy and why we need it and why we need it globally. If we talk about the alts, its place so far in the world, in our economy, it's a little bit more removed from the everyday experiences of the individual. But when we talk about Bitcoin, it becomes quite clear we can relate it to inflation, for example. So that's how we do focus primarily on Bitcoin. We have different seminars that we'll present to the public and to teachers. Our first one, the foundation one, focuses mainly on Bitcoin. And if we have other opportunities to follow up, as sometimes we do, we have like 2-part, 3-part sessions, then we'll mention that there are altcoins and these are some of their purposes, how are they different, and so on.
So okay, so essentially the strategy is you train the teachers can then disseminate this more broadly with their students, which makes sense because that's scalable. So when you structure the training for the teachers, are you delivering that in person? Are you doing it across Zoom? Do you record the sessions and make the material available afterwards? Like, how are you kind of delivering that content-wise?
Ideally, we would have loved to have delivered our sessions in person. However, because pandemic, so this past year, all of our sessions have been over Zoom or other platforms such. We have recorded some of our seminars, and we are hoping to continue to do that so that that series is available to other people. Because we are so much in our infancy and we are strapped with time being full-time teachers, we have content that we are working on, not yet all available and accessible, but it's definitely on the to-do list.
That's really fascinating, huh?
We will have the opportunity. We've already got some dates lined up for the fall where, yay, we get to finally meet the teachers in person and present in person, which it's going to be so much more exciting. Some of the things that we do is we practice trading currency with our phones, and it's just so hard to do online, whereas in person, we can show how quickly these transactions can happen.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So what, in terms of scaling it then, so you're teaching the teachers, they presumably are going back into the classroom and delivering this knowledge across to students, but how is that happening? Are they then converting your training materials into specific training sessions on crypto? Or is it just happening ad hoc because they now have the knowledge and a student maybe asks them a question and they go, oh yes, this is what it is. Like, do you have any insight into how your training is being disseminated in the real world?
Not yet. However, that's a really good thing to do. So far, it's been ad hoc. Cryptocurrency is not a part of our curriculum, at least not in my school district. For example, one of the things that I've run into as a person trying to learn about this and trying to teach about this is cryptocurrency, the word, often is firewalled on our school district's computer servers. So in trying to research—
Oh, you're kidding. Are you serious?
There are quite a few crypto sites that I can't access and some exchanges I can't access, which is really unfortunate because there's so much good quality information out there. I can't access it on my school server because those words are firewalled. And that's one of the reasons why we want to do this. It's to show people it's not a threat. It's not a bad thing. We don't need to be alarmed. It's, we teach people how to invest responsibly. A lot of times learning about cryptocurrency and blockchain, it's not even about investment. It's just knowing the technology. And so that's one of the hurdles. Crypto is not a part of the curriculum yet. I know that some teachers will mention it, as I do, when we talk about economy and when we talk about the future of the web. We are not mandated to talk about crypto. We're not expected to talk about blockchain. And so some teachers, they've signed up for our webinars more as a personal interest in investment, not necessarily to bring it into their classroom. I would love to see the day where there is a blockchain focused curriculum where I could deliver it and then other teachers could also deliver it so that our students are prepped for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a teaching perspective, it's not like you're tasked or I guess allowed to give investment advice. So really what you're doing is saying like, this is the information, here's where you can do your own research, like go off and do it and learn about it. But giving that context to people is super important because like you say, most people are not that technical and they think that you have to be technical. So you did touch on it a little bit, but I wanted to ask a bit about what your roadmap is. So when were you founded, by the way? Sorry, what was the start date of this project?
November of 2021.
Oh, so it's super recent.
Super recent. That's when we decided. And at that time, we had done one presentation to the Business Educators Association out here in BC. And the feedback that we got was this was one of the most popular topics that the teachers wanted to learn about. And Kyle and I kind of said, okay, so there's definitely an audience. That audience is teachers who want to know about this. We decided, let's make ourselves available. And as a brand, to other educators, to other school districts, we've marketed ourselves across Canada to other school districts as well. We find that there's so much noise in the crypto space. There's a lot of information out there, but sometimes it does take a technical mind to understand it, or it takes so much time to understand it. And we said, let's just make this easy so that a grade 5 teacher could understand it. A home ec teacher who might want to invest could understand it. We see ourselves continuing to share this with educators so that they can talk about it with their students. We see ourselves building curriculum for this, so that teachers could take this into their classroom and begin teaching it. And we see ourselves reaching out to the general public and making ourselves available to the public so that they can also learn to invest and build portfolios if they're interested, in a way that doesn't eat up tons of their time and doesn't require them to have a great wealth of knowledge and sift through a whole lot of material before they build their portfolio.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you talk to me a little bit just about the mechanics of starting a business? Because like one of the things that, I think is most challenging when you want to be a founder is just like, where do you begin? And you obviously said this is the first time you've done it. You had a little bit of inspiration through your family background in entrepreneurship, but how did you start? Like, and what were the challenges that you faced when you and Kyle got together and said, right, we want to do this? How did you sort of start at the drawing board, and what were your kind of first actions that you took?
It was complicated, and it's something that we continue to tweak. When we began, we were so excited about this. We thought, yes, let's do it. And we thought, well, let's come up with a logo. Let's come up with a name. We need to reach out to, again, various school districts, start marketing ourselves. Let's make some contacts. And let's think about building a website. Okay, so how do you build a website? You need a host. Oh, what's a host? We were really just learning from the very, very, very beginning. With our business background, we kind of understood what to do, but in terms of how to do it and where to do it, that was all learning. And the month of November and into December until our winter break for teachers, it was teaching from 8 until 4. And then maybe some marking and some assessment for school. And then we would spend hours in the evening just investigating, how do we build EVOS blockchain education? What do we do? I think it's fair to say we were quite burnt out at the beginning, just learning everything, developing seminar materials, developing curriculum, building a social media brand, making social media content, which we found, is way more difficult, way more time consuming. than I ever thought it would be.
Suddenly you have a whole other level of respect for social media influencers.
Oh my goodness. I went back and I told my students and I said, this is a very, very good job. You should look into like, making Instagram posts. This could really land you a job because companies want people like you. Way more respect for social media content creators. Now I understand why they want people to do that and to understand SEO. So yes, the first month and a half, it was quite intense for us. And then we both kind of said to one another, we can't keep this up. We can't be having conversations about EVOS and studying and creating content for EVOS every single night after working all day long and then still trying to have our own personal time. So since then we've backed up and backed off quite a bit, and we found a pace that works such that we share content creation, building connections. We still continue to devour hours and hours of research and information. We still continue to tweak our seminar material and go back to our curricular material and say, is this what we want to do? Is this the right format? It was very difficult. I think time management was probably the hardest part. And because we are so early, we don't yet have the funds to continue to build our brand. But as we grow, and there seems to be still a lot of interest and popularity in how do I learn blockchain as a teacher? How do I teach it to my students? We see ourselves eventually making that curricular material available to teachers. And then, that opens up more questions like on which platform, how do we do this? And is it possible to monetize it? How do we build this community? So many questions. The more we accomplish, the more questions we have.
Yeah, it's a bit like everything. The crypto rabbit hole is exhausting.
It is.
It's just like every day I find a new podcaster that I like that I didn't know about, or a new article that I need to read, and I'm like, oh God, I don't even know where to start. It's just the most bizarre thing. But
I think I have 8 tabs open on my phone of articles I want to read. So yeah.
It's so true. You talked a little bit when we talked offline about the structure of how teachers maintain their ongoing education and how you guys fit into that space. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that delivery mechanism is interesting in terms of how teachers keep themselves up to speed on kind of new training and how that sort of ties into your business.
So in British Columbia, the public school teachers, we have professional development days, and those are days within the school calendar where the students don't attend classes, and rather the day is set aside so that the teachers have dedicated time to pursue professional development in whichever curricular area is important to them. And so for some teachers, that might be, I'm going to attend a workshop on how to teach nonfiction reading to students. For other teachers, it could be, I need to feel more versed and comfortable with digital technology. I will sign up for a presentation with I don't know, a Microsoft Excel expert who's going to teach me about those skills. And so what Kyle and I do is we have put ourselves forward as professional development speakers. And on those days, rather than us attending workshops to learn, we've become presenters in that we've created the materials, tried to make it interactive as much as possible over a virtual platform to engage teachers so that they have they feel confident at the end of our seminars about what cryptocurrency is and what blockchain is. We have throughout the school year 4 or 5 days dedicated to professional development, and every school district has them on different days. So we've been able to use those days to present to various school districts across the Lower Mainland.
And teachers have carte blanche on what courses they attend, so it's not prescriptive. They can find any course that's available out there and use that, right?
Correct. And when the teachers sign up, we ask them for feedback, and a lot of times they'll say, I'm signing up because I want to invest. I'm signing up because the student in my classroom said he made $10,000 and I want to know how he did it. And sometimes it's just, I mean, like, I want to know how your student did it too. Sometimes it's just the teachers will say, I would like teaching resources for talking about blockchain and Bitcoin in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important because as we move into more of a kind of crypto native world, actually, for kids to kind of get that grounding very early on so that they understand the terminology and the language and, like, how everything functions is really important. So in setting up your business and in terms of kind of propagating this information, like, what would you say the biggest challenges that you faced?
I think for Colin, myself, it has been time management, using the limited amount of time that we have to accomplish as much as possible, while the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space continue to change, while we're finding public sentiment, it comes and goes, and sometimes there is interest and sometimes there is no interest. And you would probably see this too, Krista. There's so much interest when the price of Bitcoin spikes, and when it becomes more expensive to purchase the crypto, everybody wants to purchase the crypto. And when the price dips, as we know it sometimes does, and as it is right now, there's just little interest. We've had to ask ourselves many, many questions about why is this? And Kyle and I are passionate about where Bitcoin and where cryptocurrency are going in the future. We really believe it's here to stay. And so that's why we want to share this knowledge with the public. However, the public isn't always receptive. And so we've had so many reflective conversations about what do we do to allow the public to embrace this or to be open to learning about this. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. We're continually just going back and asking that question, like, is there—
I was going to say, I think a lot of people don't appreciate how early we actually are. And you're absolutely right about when the price spikes, everybody wants to come to events and do stuff, which is so counterintuitive in some ways. I think it was Dan Held put out a really funny tweet the other day, and he said, when Bitcoin is like $60,000, like US dollars, he's like, oh, everyone's like, oh, I need to wait till the price drops before I invest. Bitcoin is like $19,000. Oh no, price is crashing. I'm not going to invest now. And he's like,
Right.
same people. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but I just thought that was so funny.
So true.
Because it's so true.
It's so true.
On the kind of piece about female founders, one of the things that I'm interested in, this is slightly off the topic of crypto specifically, but we see a lot fewer women in the crypto space kind of coming in as founders. And I have some of my own thoughts as to why that might be. But do you have any sense as to why you think that might be? I don't know whether you would have thought about this at all, even from an educator's lens or anything else. Like, why is it that we see less women kind of embracing this space early on?
Interestingly, I think when we did our professional development seminars for the teachers, I don't have the official stats, but it never jumped out at me as there aren't many ladies signed up. It wasn't a glaring discrepancy between the two. However, when I do my research, and probably as you find as well, a lot of times the people who are prominent in the crypto space are male. Now, having said that, there are some very, very prominent female founders and bloggers and analysts, which is fantastic. But I think sometimes jumping into something so technical that is so time consuming, that might be one of those barriers to entry that hold female back, where it appears like it's really, really difficult to learn. It appears like I need to understand computers, or I need to understand money. And maybe a lot of women don't have confidence talking about those topics. And I wonder if one of the reasons why our seminars had a good representation and interest from females is because it was presented as, here's an hour and a half, here's 2 hours, we're going to make it easy for you to learn. And perhaps with that barrier of, I don't have time, I don't know how to start, I don't know where to start, maybe with that removed, it made it open to both genders.
I mean, it's interesting because I was thinking about that, the content that I listen to. I mean, for example, my favorite podcasts are like, I listened to What Bitcoin Did with Peter McCormack. I listened to Robert Breedlove's What is Money. I listened to Anthony Pompliano's Pomp Crypto podcast. And then ones that I've started recently, like Natalie Brunel, but that's a fairly like recent addition. Lynn Alden obviously gets interviewed a lot across different crypto podcasts, but she's quite an outlier. Like, there aren't that many public sort of speakers out there. And there was one more as well, was the Wyoming, I've forgotten her name now, the one that runs that, I've forgotten her name. Anyways, but there are probably 3 women that for me are very kind of front of mind in the crypto space, but not that many compared to the amount of men whose content I kind of consume and listen to. Like Cypher Dean Amos, Bitcoin Standard. I mean, that's the other one that's, like everybody kind of knows that book. My thinking behind this, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think a lot of it is that women tend to be more risk aware. And because it's such an early technology, do you agree?
I do. And that was something I thought about too when we had spoken about this earlier. I thought, is it because jumping into Bitcoin, doing this investment, it takes risk. And is there a biological tendency for women to be less risk or to be more risk averse? And I don't know. Or is it because culture has said to women, don't do that, it's risky? And I'm not too sure. I tend to think it's because many women feel it's not their place. And perhaps that's just culture saying, don't do that, it's dangerous. And don't do that, it's dangerous in many, many things, in the physical sense, and maybe in the financial sense too, perhaps. But then I think about, well, I do it. And we do have the teachers who have signed up. I thought, oh, I don't know, am I the anomaly here?
You might be an outlier, I don't know.
I might be an outlier. And then having said that, I do have female peers and really, really close friends who don't touch the finances. And I don't know if it's because they've had the privilege to not have to think about that, or if it's just a general lack of interest. And I think being a teacher, being a female teacher, talking about technology, talking about money, and talking about how to get rich and how to invest, I think it's powerful and important that the students see, we can take a class with Ms. Chan, or we can take a class with Mr. whomever, and it really, really doesn't matter. Either person can teach digital technology. Either person can teach about investing.
I wanted to ask you just some more practical questions about starting a business, because now you've done like, what, 7-8 months of this.
Yeah.
Do you have, I was reading my notes here, so do you have any advice and tips for wannabe founders on how to get started? You've obviously gone through some of the pain. Is there anything that you would kind of advise in terms of, here's the best process to go about stuff, or if I went back and did it again, I might do this differently or that differently?
How would I do things differently, or what would I advise for someone creating a startup? I would say have a map and a timeline, and do continually tweak it and see what's feasible, and use the analytics to see the feedback that you are getting. Definitely invest in knowledge about marketing. I think marketing is really, really important. Marketing and promotion at the beginning, establish connections. And I feel like I'm still so early in the startup phase that I would love for somebody to tell me what to do. And definitely, I think, go easy on yourself, because it is really, really difficult to get this off the ground, particularly for something, as you said, we're still so early, and trying to establish something that is still so early is very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's kind of wild actually when you see people in the crypto space who feel very established to us that are interested in this, and then it's like they've only been doing their podcast for 3 years, and you're like, oh wow, you know. I was actually listening yesterday, I think it was to a podcast with Mark Andreessen and Joe Rogan. It was really interesting, not crypto specific at all, but Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz, the VC.
Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, he was. I know. He said actually he doesn't do podcasts that often. And so it's quite interesting that he even did one to begin with. But the guy has an encyclopedic knowledge. And I know he's a little bit Marmite for people in the crypto space because of the VC kind of investments and the perception that they sort of pump and dump. And he didn't actually talk about crypto that much, which I thought was a shame. But the piece that I thought really was interesting was he made a comment about, he was talking about politics in the workplace, and he was talking about the Coinbase CEO coming out and saying, you know, like, this isn't the place for your politics. But the comment that he made in that context was interesting, that he said just starting a business and making it successful, being able to promote it, get traction, you know, kind of rounding up a group of people, having them buy into a mission and establishing that mission and making it successful, he said, is so unbelievably hard. It's so difficult to make it successful. And it was kind of heartening, because I thought to myself, here's a guy that if anybody knows about early stage companies, it's him, and how to make them successful. And he was just recognizing that this is like one of the hardest things that you can do, and you need to stack the odds in your favor, because it's basically impossible anyway, you know. So
that's nice, really reaffirming to hear. Because yeah, when you see these companies, and even teaching about marketing and promotion is very different from having to do it. And when you're in the trenches, you realize it doesn't happen as seamlessly. Like, it doesn't always go from point A to point B smoothly and quickly. So hearing him say that, I thought, okay, that's good. definitely
It's
something
reassuring.
I'm experiencing.
On that point, could you give any more specifics? So if anyone is starting a business and they want to kind of focus on the marketing, do you have any specifics of resources that you think they should look at or strategies that they should employ?
Something that I've been looking at, I guess, twofold for myself as a teacher and how I help the students who might be content creators, might be SEO analysts, and for our own business is how do you divide your time and what channels do you use? Are you blogging? Is it video content? Is it, are you hashtagging? Are you spiffying up your website? So I think it's researching what works best for you as the owner and also what works best for your brand and not trying to do everything all at once. I've learned that we can also pay attention to how we communicate. And so are we communicating through pictures and video? And is that the best way to reach your audience, to find your target audience and then to connect with them and have them understand? Your writing ability and the words you choose is really, really important. And also even things like time of day. What time of day do you try to reach out to your audience? I think for a person starting up, investigate all those different channels and see what works best for, I think we have to take care of ourselves first. And not burn out and not try to do everything. And maybe hone in on one of those areas and really knock it out of the park, or try to knock that one out of the park and make it work for the company.
Mm. And are there any specific videos or books that you read to do that? Is there anyone that you would recommend following in the SEO space? And just for those that don't know the terminology, that's search engine optimization. So is there anyone that you would kind of recommend or any resource that was particularly helpful for you?
I have found the good old Twitterverse to be quite helpful in terms of marketing, actually. And I have, unfortunately, I have a few people that I follow and they publish good content. They'll say, you know, when you're doing an Instagram post, it should be like this. This is effective. This is not effective. Or sometimes they'll just say, these are great digital platforms you can use. Try this for creating posts. Try this for editing. Try this for blog writing and for copywriting. I have various names. Unfortunately, they don't come to me right now. Where they give you little snippets every now and then of this is how you should do it and make it sustainable for yourself and your company.
Interesting. Yeah, that's super helpful. And I had a question as well, sorry, that's just at the back of my head. How did you come up with the name EVOS? What's the backstory of that?
We had, we knew we needed some sort of name, but we didn't really know which one. So we came up with a giant list of terms, and some of the terms that we thought reflected technology and future and just sounded nice. Many of them were already taken because they do their job. They sound nice, they reflect technology. And so somebody else has already grabbed it. And so when Kyle and I came up with EVOS, we liked the sound of it. And we also realized that the word EVOS reflects chunks of time. And we thought, well, we are moving forward to a different period of time now. We're going into a different era. We thought, okay, that can apply. And we liked the sound of it.
Interesting. I was fascinated when people come up with names. A question as well. So you are obviously based in Canada, and you know, I know that the Canadian government has a lot of programs that help support early stage founders and things like that. Do you have any kind of insight or recommendations that, on any of those, just from your personal experience sitting in this country?
No, not yet. And honestly, at this stage, I don't know if we qualify or if there are even qualification criteria. What we have been able to do so far is through the professional development channels with teachers, we've been given an audience, and sometimes there's a little bit of an honorarium that comes with it for us to continue building our curricular material. If the Canadian government has stuff that's accessible to us, I would love to know more about it. I don't know if there are small business grants that we can get just yet. However, we are constantly looking for that.
Okay, interesting. That's helpful. I guess if anything springs to mind, we could also circulate that for founders that might be in a similar space that, you know, might be helpful. Okay, cool. But I think that probably covers off most of it. It's been super fascinating hearing about what you're doing, and thank you for taking the time out of your school break to share all these thoughts. Where can people find you guys on social media? So what's your website? What are your social media channels, and where should people look you up?
Check out our website at evosconsulting.ca because we're in Canada, and we're on Twitter and we're on Instagram at EVOS Blockchain.
Perfect. Okay, great. We can tag you on that then when we put the podcast out. I look forward to hearing about how you and Kyle get along building this business. And I think what you're doing is amazing, because the earlier people learn about this stuff, I think the easier it will be for them to just hit the ground running. It's going to be a great inspiration to other female founders out there who have an idea and they just want to go for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you so much for your time and this opportunity.